You can knock it, you can rock it, you can go to Timbuktu, but you'll never find a Nessie in the zoo. You may see an anaconda, a giraffe and kangaroo, but you'll never see a Nessie in the zoo. I don't think that's going to coordinate quite as well as our raggy dolls, actually.
Welcome, listeners of Illusions of Temporal Discussion, the episode-by-episode Nightmare retrospective podcast. I'm Martin Harder, and I most certainly have come for dinner.
I'm Kim Stewart-Crossley, and I have certainly come for something.
Martin O'Doney couldn't make it for this episode because it's bingo night, so in his place we have Jake Collins.
Yeah, it's like losing a farthing and finding a fiver, isn't it? I'm Jake Collins, and I do tend to go through the occasional bad spell, particularly when there are winter viruses around.
Yeah, I think Martin O'Doney's finding that a bit of a problem as well at the moment. Hopefully he'll be back with us soon. I'll uncross my fingers now. Today we're taking a look at Series 5, Episode 7, which was shown on CITV on Friday the 18th of October 1991. Of course, Bryan Adams was still number one with Everything I Do It For You, but I'm sure everyone will be pleased to know that after this, we only have one more episode until we finally get a new song.
Hooray!
No change at the UK box office this week either, as The Commitments remained the most watched film according to saltypopcorn.co.uk. We're going by the best information that we have here. Unfortunately, box office figures before like 1997 are kind of a bit iffy. There was no real kind of record kept for it.
I think at this point we've basically gone with assume Robin Hood until told otherwise.
Yeah.
And we've now been told otherwise.
You're listening to Temporal Discussion, bringing you the latest news from 1991.
On this day, the Soviet Union resumed diplomatic ties with Israel following a 24-year hiatus that began after the 1967 Six-Day War. Following the conflict, the Soviet Union severed ties with Israel, siding with Arab nations such as Egypt and Syria, which it supported with military and economic aid during the Cold Conflict. The restoration represented a significant shift in Soviet foreign policy under Mikhail Gorbachev, reflecting the broader changes brought about by his glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring reforms. And Martin, I know you're listening to this and you're giggling away at my pronunciations.
You could have had that in a Geordie accent. That would have been far worse.
As well as the fading impact of Cold War dynamics. The scheduling was also impacted by the impending Madrid conference in late October 1991, a watershed moment in which Israel, Arab governments and Palestinians met in direct peace talks for the first time, co-sponsored by both the United Governments and the Soviet Union. Restoring ties enabled the Soviets to take an active diplomatic role in the Middle Eastern peace process. It also allowed the emigration of the Soviet Jews to Israel, which had been a sensitive topic throughout the Cold War due to harsh Soviet prohibitions. This diplomatic gesture not only indicated a warming in Soviet-Israeli ties, but also represented the USSR's larger efforts to recast its worldwide role as it neared the end of its existence later that year.
And now time turns. The recording light burns. Timeout is gone. The podcast is on.
To arms! We're being invaded! Oh, do stop panicking, Pickle, and you can tell that stupid Master of Arms to stop blowing the alarm. Of course we've been invaded. The Watchers are here. So much for our security systems. If we can't spot a few million of them creeping in, how can we hope to keep the odd goblin out, eh? Welcome, you lot. Well, come on, Pickle. They haven't come for dinner. They've come for an adventure. So serve one up.
Right, Master. I have one right here on the menu. Right then. On the quest are Jonathan, Ray, and John, guiding Ben in search of the shield. They're from Exeter, Master, but quite clever for all that. 6 minutes into level 1, and they found Motley trapped in some stocks. They've a purse of silver, Master, and I think a spyglass.
Oh? You think, do you, Pickle? That's news to me.
It's news to me as well, because this is the first indication that we've ever had that there is someone else in the castle.
Yeah, other than Treguard and Pickle, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. The quest for the future king in the penultimate nightmare book, The Dragon's Lair. If you manage to rescue the future king at the end of that, Tregard's attendants will come to take the baby from you and make it comfortable. And I thought to myself, first reading that, Tregard's attendants? He doesn't have any. Well, he has this Master-at-Arms, I guess. It could have been Pickle and the Master-at-Arms, with Pickle wet nursing King Arthur.
Oh, God.
I remember reading that, and it was literally like, where did they come from?
It makes sense that there would be other people in the castle.
And yet.
It's a bit like that episode of Buffy where some students actually come in to use the library and they just stare at them like, what the hell are you doing here?
You're not supposed to be here.
We're supposed to get books. Yeah, well, Tregard must have had a bit of a hiring kick since he came and took charge of Dunshelm again, because, of course, Veston's army killed all the original servants. So there's been stuff going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah, apparently so.
Either that or we just found somebody in the cellar or whatever.
Well, let's not conjecture. Let's discover. Game on!
Where we left off last episode, Ben had just discovered Motley in the stocks. Motley tells Ben that he had a row with a certain little elf, who responded by putting him in the stocks.
Hillary.
The only way to get me out is persuading her to release me, but I can't do it because I'm stuck here. So look, if you come across her, do your best for Motley, won't you?
Ask him. Shall I...
Oh, now listen.
Yeah, I agree, Ben.
Listen, green stones, that's what she likes, yeah. But where the heck you'd find one of them, I don't know. Beats me.
Right.
Motley spots the spyglass that Ben is carrying and explains how to use it. Ben holds it in front of the ice shield.
Don't give me excuses, Scarkill. A new quest is underway and I want it stopped. And no, I don't know where the dragon has landed them. Otherwise, I wouldn't need you and your nasty little goblins, would I? I could make do with Fright Knights and blockers. They don't eat anything
there's
at
a
all.
nest.
Dear, oh dear, Jonathan. This is a spyglass sequence, not an eye shield sequence. So in this case, I shouldn't tell him. If you're not careful, you'll entice your dungeoneer to say really loudly and awkwardly, yes, and drown out Lord Fear while we're all supposed to be listening to him.
Just concentrate on the minuscule piece
Yes?
of grey matter which passes in your peaceful brain on this one salient point. There's a dungeoneer down there somewhere, and if you don't catch it, I'm going to put your goblins in charge of you. Intruder alert. Something's trying to peek. Going to full security blackout.
Drop it, Ben! Drop it! Drop it on the floor! Just drop it!
Drop it, Ben.
Oof. Oh, that was a close one. Listen, I think you better make yourself missing, so to speak. Go on, quick, hurry up and get out of here.
Okay, Ben.
Good luck
Yep.
to you.
I've been saying on recent episodes, if anyone's been listening, I hope they have, some of these early spyglass sequences in the first half of Series 5 are more scene setters than information givers. The spyglass is still finding its feet in the show. This one, I think, is it even much of a scene setter? It's a very general spyglass sequence, which doesn't give us anything specific that's going to relate to Ben's level 1 at all. It will work very well as an introduction to Lord Fear, really.
Yeah, it does seem like it could have been slotted in anywhere, doesn't it?
It really does. I always think as a scene setter, even if they haven't got useful information, it's worth slipping them in there, establishing that new atmosphere in Nightmare's second half. But this one, I do feel is rather a waste of time. And after all that effort they went to, Martin, as we were saying last time, to shove it just this side of the episode break, so Mark Knight would not appear in episode 6. But here he is making a very token appearance in episode 7. A weird spyglass situation all round there, I would say.
He's probably contracted to appear in a certain number of episodes.
Oh, I said that last time.
Yeah.
14 out of 16, and you poo-pooed me.
Well, looking back at it, I think you're probably right, to be honest.
And yet there was a poo-pooing.
There was a poo-pooing, I admit.
And I didn't poo-poo my poo-poo, because I never do.
Never do.
Poo-poo was possibly a little harsh there, Martin, to accuse you of. I must admit, I apologise for that. That would have worked just as well with Catherine on level 1 to introduce the character of Lord Fear and the concept of Starkill. We don't even see Starkill, where Lord Fear is apparently talking to him.
Poor Scarkill.
The strangest, most pointless spyglass ever, I would say there.
Yeah. Motley's reaction at the end is a bit weird as well. I think Paul Valentine was expecting a death stare ending rather than a communications blackout.
Yes, seems like that.
I quite enjoy the information giving ones because I love the scramble to write things down. As soon as they pan back to the advisors, there's just this scramble for clipboards and pencils. And I'm like, you know what? That would be me too.
Yeah.
I think really from this point on, we do start getting spyglass sequences more like you'll see in series 6, 7, 8, longer, plenty of information. Any scene setting that's been done very much to back up the information it's passing on to the team. So the spyglasses are starting to find their feet after this.
As they're getting more used to the spyglasses, there's less faff with them, of working out how to use them or having to explain how to use them.
Series 4 is kind of a transition to something else. Series 5 is a transition specifically to this new style of gameplay. That's why I said in the last episode, Series 6 does feel a lot like Series 5, but very comfortable, very established, very confident in its new kind of identity.
And yet, I still miss the catacomb bite.
I think we always will. The team guide Ben to the nearby exit, and an overly long passive path takes him out. This is not the longest passive path in the episode. There is one coming up later that is ridiculous.
Do you remember where that room we just had is in real life, Martin?
Oh, you did tell me.
It's Bodiam.
Oh, of course, that's the one with the island in the middle of the moat.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's where they landed, and yeah, they're still inside it. Extra information from Annie about that pillory room. It's the kitchen, interestingly enough.
Oh.
The huge fireplace is a big giveaway, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're outside a kind of Tudor house, and there is a man sitting at a table in front of you, drinking some ale, I think, and there's some barrels as well.
Oh, hello. Good day to you. Come here a bit.
Walk forward, Ben.
Come here. I must say, what a pleasure it is to greet a far traveller, especially one who's in need of the services of a general trader, importer, exporter, etc., by which you would have guessed I mean myself, Julius Scaramounger, at your service. Now, tell me, who do I have the pleasure of dealing with?
Ben.
Ben, is it? I'm charmed, I'm sure. And as a matter of fact, I do a very nice line in charms as well, as you've mentioned it. But first things first, eh?
Yep, I'm trying to convince the missus that we need to go to the Weald Downland Museum.
This farmhouse, of course, is Weald Downland. I hope you guys don't mind if I read out this. I've added 2 sets of inverted commas to what you wrote, Martin, to help me read it.
Okay.
Seeing Ben approaching, Julius Scaramounger takes a break from boozing to try to con Ben. Julius offers some food, which gets #knapsacked, and asks him what he's in the market for. Ben asks for a green stone, but since Julius doesn't have one, he tries to fob Ben off with a red one. Ben's not having it, though, insisting on a green one. Yeah, I love the way that Ben sticks to his guns in this scene. Advisor Ray suggests Ben say it's a present for his cousin, who's an elf. Ray also adds.
Yeah.
Julius continues to push the red stone, but Ben says it's too hot, which works in a couple of different ways. It probably is hot, having been handled by Julius Scaramounger. They flash a little silver at Julius, metaphorically speaking, of course there's no real coins in there, who suddenly remembers that he does actually have a green stone. He hands it over in exchange for the bag of silver.
There's some question about the interspecies habits of Ben's family.
My cousin, the elf.
I think Ben's right not to go with Ray's suggestion there. It's not a very convincing reason to want the green stone.
It's a very William thing to say, isn't it?
Yes. Now, I hope it was obvious why I put those inverted commas in to help me read it, because, of course, Julius is well aware that he has a green stone hidden in his little pouch, as I was saying in the previous episode. He just doesn't want to give it to Ben.
Yeah.
For whatever in-universe reason, he's trying to flog this Firestone. Perhaps he's had a run on red stones and he's trying to sell them.
Or perhaps it is hot and he needs to get rid of it quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I do like the way Ben sticks to his guns, and I do have a little green stone here, and he takes it out of his little pouch. This makes me think of the Quest newsletter, which I've been having a look back at quite recently, just to check that everything I've been citing from it on this podcast does actually say what I think it says. So I'm not talking nonsense.
That's my job.
Unfortunately, the Quest does say what I think it says about things like Gwendolyn, the Pooka, Neddy, And as everyone knows, Nightmare Adventurers Club really started with Series 5. And the first issue of the Quest has a lot of character profiles. Oh, here's who to look out for in the new upcoming series. And Julius Scaramanga's profile there says, Dungeoneers will have to watch out for this fast-talking merchant, words to that effect, or they might end up coming away from the exchange with something they didn't want to buy instead of the thing they do want to buy, which Julius has sneakily held on to. And this scene is an example of that potentially happening.
Almost textbook, really. Yeah.
Did we ever decide whether Julius was a grey character or firmly on the side of the opposition? I know there are scenes of him in conversation with Lord Fear.
I think grey and scared. Like, he'd probably be a bit more helpful if he wasn't absolutely goblin-hoarding terrified.
True.
Of Lord Fear.
At this stage in Series 5, he's really a merchant and poacher, double dealer, bit of a scallywag, out for himself. It's an interesting example of more plot being brought into Nightmare. Later in this series, there's a conversation in the spyglass between Lord Fear and Julius Scaramanga, where, as Kim says, he's scared, telling Lord Fear, I don't really want to join the opposition. Thanks very much for the offer. Lord Fear's all scornful and take money from both sides. But then in Series 6, thanks to the intervention, the commercial rivalry with our Wok, Julius does seem to be a full-fledged member of the opposition, working for Lord Fear in order to make ends meet and keep Lord Fear off his back. So he certainly has a journey through the two series, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of forced into it.
Lord Fear, what a knob. Character development, what a thing.
Okay.
Oh, I must say you drive a very hard bargain, though. There'll be no meat on the table for Julius Scaramanga. All the little Scaramangers will be peace pudding from now on. Still, never mind. Anyway, you've been straight with me, so I'll give you a tip. Now, upstairs there's a portal. Now, through it, you'll find the elf path, which will put you back on the right track, eh? But I'd go for it if I was you, because by the sound of things, there's someone coming outside. And anyway, I must be flying now.
Julius exits, and the advisor's guide Ben into the house. Oh, quite an interesting point there. Julius exits. If you listen to Raina Burton there, he thinks he's inside the house. He doesn't realise they're sitting outside. Two bits of evidence for that. He says there's a portal upstairs. He thinks they're downstairs in the house in the inn. And very tellingly, he says he can hear someone coming outside. Well, we're all outside, aren't we?
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but that's true.
You're in a kind of old castle room. There's some kind of grating up the top with some stairs going one way.
It looks a bit fallen down. Looks quite...
Yeah, it's very disowned.
Thanks to Annie, we know that this is from Caerphilly Castle, and we see it a lot in Series 5, and once in Series 6 from a different angle.
Annie, I know you're listening, and we absolutely love you, and your website has been a lifesaver for us.
Thank you so much.
And there's a lady standing in the centre, I think. She's looking at a rope that's going up into the air.
Shove off, face sake! Nobody asked you in, nobody wants you here, and nobody likes you, so leg it.
I must say she's worse than usual today.
Worse? This is what I call level 3 rudeness. Elita gives elves a bad name.
Oh, be fair, Pickle. She gives everyone a bad name. She's certainly giving Ben a few.
I just want to point out that that's only half a real rope. The entire top half of that rope is just drawn on.
When we see later in the series, Elita starts climbing the rope that's hanging down in the same way. You can really see that if you look carefully, because only the bottom half of it wobbles. But that's not something you really spot in the early 90s.
No.
On the 14-inch television.
Not even gonna lie, I don't think I spotted it now.
But also, if you look at the lighting of this room, it's very clear that there's no roof. So where's that rope coming from?
Magic.
Yeah. Well, whenever you notice something like that, a wizard did it.
I see. All right, yes. But in episode AG4...
Wizard.
Elita asks Ben if he's got something for her, and he shows her the green stone. She tells him it's completely useless to non-elves, so he might as well just hand it over. Ben refuses until she agrees to release Motley from the pillory. Elita begins to lose interest, asking why she should let him out. Ben reiterates that she won't get the stone if she doesn't. After some deliberation, Elita agrees and Ben hands over the stone.
Again, he's really good at sticking to his guns, Ben. I like the way he does that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What's to stop her from doing what she did last time, though?
Because it's level 1.
That's true.
I suppose I've been a bit ruder than I've needed to be. So, I'll give you a useful little rhyme. But you've got to remember it, okay?
Yes.
Right. First it's red, then it's blue. After that, then green's the hue. Then make sure you stand on grey, or you won't live another day. Now shove off, face ache.
At this point, the team aren't sure where to go. They do contemplate climbing up the rope, imagine that, before Treguard points out the exit to the left. The random rope that is left apparently hanging from some skyhook goes entirely unexplained.
So there's this quite famous magic trick, which as kids we would have known as the Indian rope trick. So this kind of just conjures up images of some bloke kind of sitting there playing a little pipe with this rope kind of rising into the air. And I think what they used to do is they used to get someone to climb the rope, like it could be a little boy or something, would disappear.
Okay, Ben, in front of you there's lots of squares that are different colours.
All right.
And we have to step on the right colours. So you've got to be very careful here, okay?
Okay.
Ben begins the causeway standing on a red block. Heeding Alita's words, the team move him onto the nearby blue block.
Okay, now turn, keep turn to your left. Turn to your left.
Turn to left.
I love the causeways. As a part of Nightmare, I think they're properly tense and visually exciting.
Interesting thought about this colours causeway. I often used to wonder, why is it these particular colours? What are the three basic colours of light making the TV? Red, green, blue. And of course you can make grey by mixing them up, can't you? So that's why it's them, probably.
They're the easiest to generate in CGI at the time.
I did wonder whether it was just literally, it's the easiest way of doing this thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it works.
Yeah.
Are you horrified if I tell you this is the last time we'll see the colour code causeway? Because it is.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because the next time that it's due to arrive is the one that you don't want to talk about.
Exactly. That's the only other time we get a sniff of it, and they don't make it that far.
Whoops.
Next, the nearest green block.
Right. Okay, now start turning to your left.
A little bit of awkward manoeuvring puts Ben on the correct grey block.
Okay, now take red. Yeah. So walk forward.
And finally, a red block. Ben heads through the door as his teammates begin shouting, apparently feeling that he is moving too slowly and is at risk of falling. Martin's got a reaction here to the challenge broadcast.
Yeah, so Challenge chose to put an advert break in here, so their yelling is kind of jarringly cut off. But Jake, was there something here that Challenge cut out?
Nothing major, nothing worth mentioning. Possibly a little bit of echoing, yelling, but not like they were doing in Series 4, cutting whole bits of dialogue.
That was bonkers.
A passive path takes the Dungeoneer through some castle ruins.
You're in a room, there's a flag of Fright Night up at the top, and it's in kind of old ruins with lots of doors.
And there's a stairway to your right.
This is Trombodium as well, and we see it a lot in Series 5 and 6.
I've seen this in other things, this room. I can't place exactly where.
It's familiar, isn't it?
You can imagine someone having a sword fight on the staircase.
Ben!
It's the jester.
Oh, I never thought I was going to catch up with you. Oh, dear. And I had to, you know, because you don't know the final password for level 1. Whew. I scrounged it to pay you back for that rescue job.
Oh, good.
Cool. And she got a mouth on her, that cavern elf. Do you know what? You could drive a hay cart through it at full speed, do a 3-point turn and still be home in time for tea. Well, laugh then.
Motley gives Ben the password, which is bludgeon, and says he'd better get going before someone misses him. Quite who would miss Motley, I'm not sure. That's just rude. But he leaves anyway. The team guide Ben to the staircase, and again, a passive path takes over. It goes up the staircase, taking in some of the scenery, and then up a stone staircase. A goblin horn sounds, and the team tell Ben to hurry. The passive path spends a good few seconds looking out at the moat, hurrying, obviously, before taking Ben through a portal. This ridiculous passive path takes almost exactly 1 full minute.
Those wooden stairs become something of a running gag with Pickle. Ooh, I hate the stairs. And it does look like it's about to fall off at one point.
Not just like the hurry Ben looks at moat.
That looking out at the moat, that's got to be a candidate for the most obviously jarringly pointless piece of eye shield footage.
Just awful. This represents everything wrong with the eye shield, this one sequence.
Yeah.
It's a great advert for Bodiam Castle.
Virtual visits.
It's not good Nightmare. It's not good television.
Ben, you're in a room There's a door to your left, and there's a rock with something on it. We can't actually make it out. And there's a wall with lots of cracks in it.
There's some bread on the rock. #knapsacked.
Now, Martin, you'll like this, I hope.
Hmm.
In regards to this wall monster business, I think you'll like this way of looking at it, which Rosey reminded me of while I was editing episode 6. The first word is an adjective. The second word is a noun. So the Clue Room Guardians are wall monsters, monsters who live in walls. And the blockers are monster walls. Walls that have been made monstrous by technomagic.
Okay, that's interesting. When I was doing the Nightmare RPG forum, not the Surrounds forum, we actually used wall monsters as a way of conveying admin messages to people. In our version, it was like a cross between a wall monster and a blocker. The walls would erupt from out of the ground, and then we would convey whatever message we needed to convey, and then the walls would disappear again.
That's a nice adaptation of a couple of Nightmare things, isn't it?
I think so.
I totally understand the use of the term in a more general way to describe any kind of wall-associated monster.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. I always use it just for the Clue Room Guardians, as the show itself does, really.
So, sorry, but by your reasoning, the Brolocan would be a wall monster.
No, because he's not in one specific wall.
But he lives within walls.
He doesn't really live in the walls. As you said, he uses them as a form of transport.
Yes, you're right.
He can also travel via floors and ceilings, of course, and, according to the final Nightmare book, Lord Fear's Domain at least, water or squiggles.
I mostly just found the Brolocan really sad. He's not the Brolocan as it should be, the original Brolocan.
Quick! Ben, quick!
That wall is a blocker, Master!
Quick, Ben, move! Where?
We don't need no stinking riddles. We barely need to think at all. All we need's a single password. That's all we need to beat this wall. Hey, blocker! Leave us kids alone. All in all, you're just another face in a wall. All in all, you're just another face in a wall.
Where?
Password.
Say bludgeon, Ben.
Say bludgeon.
Bludgeon. Right. Ben, if I said you're right, quick, Ben.
The first time I heard that blocker jingle that the listeners have just heard, but we haven't, was when I was editing episode 4 with Sarah. And I thought, this is kind of ironic because in this case, they do need a single password, but they've got 2, haven't they? And that's why they really do need to think at all. Very true to form, Sarah's team spend ages, longer than they should, thinking about which password to choose, which I think really shows how Sarah's level 1 is experimental and unusual, as I was trying to get across on episode 4.
Yes.
Having successfully navigated the blocker, Ben exits.
Right, Ben, you're in a room. There's a sorcerer, I think, sitting at a table in the ruins, and there's a big iron door at one end. There's a stool, and he's sitting at a desk in a red cloak.
Master, this is Hordris the Confuser. What's he up to?
I've no idea, Pickle.
This way, please.
Right.
All
walk
those
forward, Ben.
about to leave level 1, please declare any contraband and abandon any useful objects at point of departure.
Okay, Ben, walk forward.
Come here, Ben, sit down.
Hordris is back in bureaucrat mode for this appearance. Ben takes a seat opposite him.
Splendid. Now, Ben, do you have anything to declare? Any bat wings?
Nope.
Crushed spiders? Crushed toads in garlic, perhaps?
Nope, I haven't got anything in my hands.
You haven't? What a pity. Supplies are getting a little low here.
Hordris indicates the descender gate and tells Ben, it definitely is a descender gate, isn't it, Martin? Like I said last time. Smirkanov behind it looks not quite right.
Yeah.
And tells Ben that behind the gate is his means of transportation to level 2. As the gate opens, Hordris says that the mechanism unfortunately doesn't always stop where it's supposed to.
That's the problem with things operated by magic. They do tend to go through the occasional bad spell. One did actually make a joke there.
Hordris informs Ben that he must shout down to activate the device, and that he must shout stop after 4 levels. Bit ambiguous, that. I prefer Brother Mace's instruction, count 6 stages and call halt on the 7th.
Yes.
After 4 levels. Does that mean on the 4th? It actually means after 4 and on the 5th, which they do manage to do, but more ambiguous than Richard got.
Brother Mace also told them they had to shout down, boy, which was just weird.
I think Michael Kuehl just put that in himself, to be honest.
Absolutely.
He always adds so much wonderful stuff to a scene, Michael Kuehl. He's brilliant. They should have kept him longer.
Absolutely.
Can we just comment on the fact that Hordris makes a joke here?
No.
Oh, never mind. One does one's best.
Ben stands up and steps into the descender. I wanted to say here, as Hordris is around again for the first time since episode 2, to Kim, you were interested in episode 2 on what he might have wanted that Sphinx bone for.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And when we see Hordris later in Ben's quest, there may be an answer to that, as Ben does end up giving him a Sphinx bone in level 3, and it's for a particular potion that Hordris has in mind.
I had entirely forgotten that.
I always like to think he's getting the Sphinx bone off Ben to make up for the one he didn't get off Catherine. The only slight problem maybe, he wanted a shin bone in episode 2. Ben ends up giving him a thigh bone, but perhaps the recipe just calls for the leg bone of a Sphinx, or at least a portion of it.
It's a bit bigger, really.
Right, Ben, you're in a kind of metal structure with a wall in front of you.
Lift. Okay.
So I think it's a lift. What we're going to do is, you're going to have to say down. Not yet, though. Then we're going to count to 4, and then you'll say stop, please.
Ben shouts down, and the descender begins to move. Once they've counted 4 levels, the advisors tell him to shout stop. The mechanism grinds to a halt in front of 2 doors.
Yeah, on the 5th, as I said.
The one on the right having a fright night over it.
Right-hand door.
Right-hand door? Isn't that a fright night, Master?
It looks so much like it, yes.
But of course, it's your choice.
The advisors immediately say to go through the right-hand door as soon as they see this fright night there.
It's usually the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember what I said on the previous episode, Martin? I mean, there was about 2 hours worth of it, so perhaps you don't remember all of it. But I think they say to go through the right before they've even clocked the Fright Night.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they've just got in their mind the right-hand door is usually the correct one.
Exactly.
Adventurer's Code.
Exactly. And what they end up going with, as I said on the previous episode, is sod it, that one's on the right, let's go through it, and hope that the Fright Night has no significance. And as was also discussed on the previous episode, it doesn't have any significance on level 2.
Pickle does seem a bit pissed off that they didn't listen to him. No.
It's a bit like when Alistair's team go for the quest he doesn't want. And it makes it look like if they had followed Pickle's advice, Malice would have been constrained to destroy them. Poor old Pickle.
I actually liked Pickle as a character when I was a kid, but I get the feeling Pickle getting angry with you is kind of like being pelted with wet cotton wool. Like, probably quite annoying, but ultimately not very mean or nasty.
I still like Pickle.
I do.
Yes, he can be irritating, but that's part of the character.
I have special places in my heart for a lot of people and things, including this podcast now, and Pickle is definitely one of them. You know, I was recording series 4, 5, and 6 when I was 7, 8, and 9, watching them a lot with all the nightmare I had, couldn't remember for a long time. And Pickle's such a huge part of that. And the way he interacts with the teams, looks after them, helps to bring the whole show to life.
Puts bananas in the knapsack.
Exactly. I can't help but always being fond of him.
Having said all this, I may have mentioned this before, I can't remember, but I know it is a hot take. I prefer Majida.
You have mentioned that. And when we get to Series 7, you can explain yourself, man.
You certainly can. With the assistants in general, I don't think they were needed to begin with, but I think they were an excellent way of progressing things and getting a bit more story out.
Yes.
Because it was someone for Treguard to bounce off.
Yes, I agree.
I said to Amy on episode 4, and she was genuinely interested, I'm sure. The show kind of develops like that as it needs to. As the world widens, as the premise changes.
It had to expand.
Yeah.
World building.
Yes. So despite Pickle's protestation, the team do remain confident that the door on the right is the correct way to go, and they guide Ben through it. The passive path takes us through more ruins.
But no moat.
No moat this time.
Right, Ben, you're in a room. There's 2 kind of window doors, and there's a table in front of you with objects on it. Can you go to the table, please?
Okay, walk forward.
Walk forward, Ben. Okay, turn to your right. Stop, Ben. Turn to your right.
Turn your right.
Can you see the table? What's on?
Yeah, there's a scroll, a gold bar, a book, a cabbage. The book's padlocked, I think.
This is one of the rooms from Hedingham Castle in Essex. It is kind of bare, this room, isn't it? It's not lavish and interesting like the Staghead room, which is directly below it in real life, as I've mentioned before. But it is a bedroom, the dormitory floor, the dormitory chamber.
Yeah, it does have, though. It's called a cabbage. And the cabbage gets knapsacked. Sorry, the cabbage gets #knapsacked.
I will make it happen.
There's also a horn on the table between the book and the gold bar. Ben reads the scroll, which bears the advice, rock breaks scissors. Advisor John suggests that Ben hits the book with the gold, but this is dismissed by his teammates.
Have either of you ever seen the nightmare spoof Bad Dream?
Oh, yes, brilliant.
Give him breakfast!
Punch through the bread.
See, now you got...
That's right, sword in your left hand, sword in your left hand. Sword down.
No, pick it up.
Speaking of Bad Dream, we are trying to get hold of the guys behind Fresh Love Productions. I know one of them used to live near me. But guys, if there is any chance you are listening to this, please send us an email. We want you on the podcast.
Absolutely. The team decide to take the book, which they theorise, funny this, represents paper. Oh God, I've gone full sarcasm now. I'm sorry, I know these are children. We're not taking the mick out of the children per se. Disclaimer, disclaimer.
That scroll clue does kind of help them in 2 different ways there. They don't know yet, but it's a clue to the causeway, and it does help them to take the book, which is going to be used successfully, vitally later on.
They also decide to take the horn. A skull haunting appears and hurries them out of the room.
I mentioned Ray's knee pad notes in the previous episode. One thing you can tell from them is that Ray, like me, was expecting to see Merlin in Series 5, and is knocked for 6 that they haven't included Merlin in Nightmare, as he always expected they would, because that book he's written, Merlin's, ?
Oh, heartbreak.
You hope, Ray. I hope, but unfortunately, that's not the case. The skull ghost in this room causes John to have one of his silly panics, doesn't it? This one gets shushed and stalled a lot more quickly than the absolutely ridiculous total breakdown he had earlier when the blocker started moving. I think someone's had a quiet word with all 3 advisors about trying to put a stop to that sort of thing. But anyway, the skull ghost here has made me think back to episode 4, where I was comparing Lord Fear coming into Nightmare and taking over existing antagonists to Dr. Paradox in Time Busters, in that he, like Lord Fear, comes in for show partway through and takes over existing antagonists, and is suddenly the big bad. When I try and think of what specific creatures that we know already from previous series has Lord Fear come in and taken over, obviously the goblins, and he's got his goblin master for that. Assassins is the other example I always think of. We'll see them later in Series 5 a couple of times. What about skull ghosts? You guys, do you think they are under the control of Lord Fear at this point? Or are they just lingering traces of violent death that try to feed off life force wherever they can find it, like they used to be?
I think they're cheeky little sods that like chasing adventurers around.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, in the next series, where Lord Fear's role becomes even more developed, every piece of antagonism in the show becomes even more Lord Fear's responsibility, his doing. And if the characters, advisors, don't say Lord Fear at least once in every 20 words, they get kicked out onto the streets of Norwich and left to fend for themselves.
Contractual obligation.
It certainly seems like that, the first couple of episodes. In Series 6, it's specifically said that the replacement for the Skull Hauntings, the Stormgeists, are Lord Fear's new friends. They're wanting to expand the role even more there. Lord Fear's in charge of the Stormgeists.
What I do think is interesting, one thing that has completely disappeared now is the weapons hauntings.
Oh, yeah, we only got the one of them in Series 4, hanging around with Mugdred.
Yeah.
Very much a throwback there.
Yeah, so I think the weapons hauntings were very much a product of the opposition, be it Mogdred or Morgana.
Definitely.
Who were both from the same school of sorcery.
The Merlin School of Sorcery, I think.
Yes.
Another thing I was reassuring myself was true in the Quest newsletter the other day was the interview with the Puka. It's a bit of fun, really. But the Puka does tell us there that he's coming up to his fourth series, Series 7, which means the Puka started in Series 4.
So suck on that, Martino.
I was terrified of the Pukas as a kid. They were the one thing in Nightmare that legitimately frightened me, and I'm not sure why. The 3D versions lost it a little bit, like they lost a little bit of the fear factor, if you like. But the 4 and 5 ones were no.
They look really evil and menacing, don't they?
Yeah. The 3D ones just look goofy, and I think it's representative of where Nightmare was heading at the time.
Yeah, I think it's the goofiness. That's a good way of putting it.
It's only a short step from the 3D Pukas, and then suddenly you've got your life force as a pie.
Another thing the Puka says in that interview is, my main allegiance is to Lord Fear. So by then, coming up to Series 7, they really want all these evil creatures to be under Lord Fear's control, all these antagonistic creatures to be under Lord Fear's control. You could argue, even at this stage, Lord Fear has taken over the Skull Ghosts, if you wanted to. Personally, I agree with you two. I think they're really lingering traces of violent death, getting what life force they can, working for themselves. And that's another way Lord Fear as the big bad is going to develop further. Have the Stormgeists and the Pukas under his control. You there, down, boy.
I just kind of always like the idea that the castle itself was kind of like, what's this, Dungeoneer? Out you get.
Yeah.
Not just Lord Fear.
I always thought that despite the Dungeoneers surviving in what you call your time and all that, there is like a essence of them that remains in the dungeon when they die, and that's what the Skull Hauntings are.
Yeah, I like that. A previous Dungeoneer appears to be haunting here. This comes back to a point Paul McIntosh made on the previous episode, where he said we can't tell how far in advance those spyglass sequences are filmed, which is very true. It is Ben's level 3 spyglass sequence that first got me to wondering, have Ben and friends taken the objects here that were really part of Tim Child's plan A? Are we getting some slight adjusting, tweaking with Ben's level 2? And in that case, Mark Knight will have already filmed Ben's level 3 spyglass sequence by this point. Lord Fear says in Ben's level 3 spyglass sequence to Skarkill, if I find out you've been taking bribes, I'll make giblets of you and your goblins. And it occurred to me after a few watches of that, it's a strange thing to say because Skarkill hasn't been taking bribes from Ben at all. But perhaps there is a possibility that in a scenario for Ben's level 2, perhaps the one Tim Child really wanted, if Ben had taken the gold here, Skarkill would have taken a bribe. And that's what Tim Child had in mind when he wrote that spyglass sequence.
Could be.
Obviously, Tim Child would have been wrong to penalise the team here for not taking the gold, because they don't have a clue for it. I mean, I don't think the scroll is also saying take the gold, as well as do this on the causeway and take the book. Richard's team had a clue. It was rather gabbled at them by Gwendolyn, but it was there and they didn't follow it. Bribe your way through to the gate tower. You can't penalise Ben here for taking the horn instead of the gold. Also, if you did, you get the exact same scene with Skarkill and Ben as you did with Skarkill and Richard, and we don't want a repeat of that, do we?
No, at least not twice in a row.
Exactly. I haven't got the gold, how about this horn? It would be exactly the same scene. So Richard must have felt quite hard done by when watching it back, seeing Ben blow a horn in front of Skarkill, and instead of, that's a goblin horn, he gets Gwendolyn rushing in to save his butt.
I would feel quite hard done by, to be fair.
So I think we've got the situation here where whether Ben takes the gold or the horn, he'll be okay. Either one is reasonable. There's no particular clue to choose between them. And the end of level 2 will be tweaked accordingly.
Yeah.
And after that, Scarkill isn't bribable. Either Lord fears too much on his back, my boss has got my number, it's the manacles for you. Or he realises if he captures the dungeoneer, he could just take the gold anyway. So I think this is perhaps the last point where Scarkill could potentially have been bribable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, yes, he realises he can capture the dungeoneer and just take the gold, because he is actually smart enough for that. But I also get the impression that Scarkill genuinely enjoys what he does, and that's his reward.
I love Raina Burton as Scarkill. I like Julius Scaramanga too, but
he's brilliant.
What a brilliant, immersive villain performance that is. Like you were saying on the previous episode, Martin, unlike Sylvester Hands and probably most other characters as we get into Nightmare's second half, not at all comedic. Though he can be comedic when he's snivelling to Lord Fear, Scarkill can, but he's always a genuine threat when he's accosting dungeoneers.
Yeah,
interacting with the team, it's like, boom, scary.
I'm not sure exactly how they would have tweaked the end of level 2 if it had been bribing Scarkill. How would Ben have found out it was winter in level 3, watch out for winter through the windows, if he hadn't summoned Gwendolyn with the horn to tell him? I don't know, but I think there is potentially some tweaking going on at the end of the level, and they're going to be okay.
It would be unfair because they hadn't had a positive or negative clue to penalise them one way or the other, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Oh, right, we're seeing through the ice shield, Ben. Okay. You're running through this door. Can you hurry up, Ben? No. And you're going down some stairs into a large lit cavern.
Staghead room.
Which is also a part of Hedium Castle in Essex. It's the Great Hall, also known as the Banqueting Hall. Another thing about this room, sometimes people say the doorway looks like a fireplace. That's because in real life, it's a fireplace.
Yeah.
Looks like one, doesn't it? But it makes a good door as well.
But it also makes sense as to why the stag's head is hanging over it.
Exactly.
You're in a room with 4 windows, with double windows at the top. There's some shields over the kind of big door and a little stool.
Ben heads over to the stool to check it out, when all of a sudden...
Yeah.
Stop.
Stop. Shall I keep going?
No, stop.
Oh, come here a minute. Let's have a look. Nice shirt, lovely shoes. Oh, nice things.
Ask him what he wants.
But he's got no weapons.
What do you want?
Here, you got nothing to protect yourself with. Don't worry. What's your name? Come and tell me, eh? What is it?
I'm Ben.
Ben, oh, well, my name is Sylvester Hands. That's what it is. You know, hands like feet, but down the other end of your body. That's my little joke.
Phase shift, Master. Yes, and just in time to prevent an act of larceny, if I'm not mistaken. There, Pickle. Time out is upon us, and slimy Sylvester Hands is no longer a threat. Well, at least until time turns again. What about this lot? Oh, come on, you know they can't hear us.
A trifle disorganized, Master. Nonetheless, they may be our best bet yet to improve on the score.
Yes, and we must do something about the score. After all, we can't let the opposition get away with murder, can we?
Paul Valentine is at least kind of settling into the voice a bit now.
As I said last time, this is really how Hands ends up.
Yeah.
We see him here, basically how we'll see him until Series 8, Episode 7, which is his final appearance, as everybody knows.
I do now because you've told me.
But speaking of Sylvester Hands, Martin, after the previous episode, you must think me a complete fraud, because I was making the point there that I thought Sylvester Hands was somewhat overused in Series 5, and I was trying to blind you with statistics by using his episode total to back up my point. Now here, Hands has a single appearance spanning 2 episodes, doesn't he?
Yes.
And he also had that between episodes 2 and 3 with the Richard and Pixel and the bottle stuff. So that's added 4 to Sylvester Hands' episode total, where it might only have been 2.
Blinding with maths here.
I see what you're doing. You're trying to pizzazz me.
However, in episode 15 of this series, Sylvester Hands has 2, or arguably 3 separate appearances, if you count the silent one, in 2 separate quests. So it all comes out in the wash, doesn't it? I wonder if Kim would like to join in the game we were playing last time, where I make the point, I think Sylvester Hands is overused in Series 5, and I ask everyone to guess how many episodes he's in out of 16 to back up my point. And then Paul McIntosh and Martin both come in with a pathetically low guess of 4.
12.
You know, that's so close.
See, for me, the fact that you said he's overused means it's more than 4.
Exactly.
He's still not as overused as the Causeways to begin with. That was just a new shiny toy.
True. 12 is much more like it. It's 11.
I'm quite proud of that guess, actually.
The credits roll over, video of Smirky flying over a lovely looking beach and coming into land over by a castle. And Jake's going to tell us which castle this is.
This is Clan Stephen Castle in Carmarthenshire, Wales. Thanks for that one, Annie.
The challenge announcer tells us that Games Master is up next. And this is actually more important than you guys might realise, because without Games Master, this podcast literally would not exist. I actually got the idea for this podcast whilst listening to Under Consultation, the Games Master podcast. Those guys are basically doing what we do, but for Games Master. Or at least they were doing it for Games Master. Now Games Master's finished in their timeline, so they are doing video game television from across the entire world now.
My friend's brother was in the new one.
Oh, yeah. One of my friends actually won an original golden joystick back in the day. He was facing some athlete during a athletics game, you know, one of those ones where you have to press the buttons really fast or something.
It's one of those episodes that kind of ticks along, gets Ben from the beginning of level 1 to level 2, has some nice moments, some interesting things to mention.
There's nothing over exciting and there's nothing catastrophic. Nice, solid episode.
It ticks along, but not much actually happens. I mean, there's nothing particularly exciting, but there's nothing particularly bad about it, apart from that one ice shield sequence.
In a winning quest that has 4 episodes in total, the journey through level 1 has to happen. And yeah, it's a solid episode, but the most exciting moments of Ben's quest on levels 2 and 3 are yet to come.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, listeners of Illusion. They're coming up next.
That was exciting, Jake. I like that.
Thank you. I do my best.
If you've enjoyed the podcast, please give us a rating and review on your platform of choice. It really helps us to grow our audience by reaching others who might be interested.
You can follow us on Blue Sky at nightmarepod.bsky.social, and our Mastodon is topspicy.social/@nightmarepod.
We're also Nightmare Pod on Threads and Twitter, and our Instagram is Temporal Discussion, all one word.
I would also like to add that we are technically still on Twitter. It's basically just episode updates on there. Now, if you want anything else, you're going to have to follow us on Blue Sky. It's probably the best one. If you want to support the podcast, we're Nightmare Pod on Patreon.
Speaking of Patreon, here's a shout out to Keepers of the Book of Quests, David N. Rabbit, Paul McIntosh, Peter Pulsford, and Scott Evans.
Advisors Benjamin Bloom, David Thompson, Kim Harder, Nate Jones, Kim Stewart-Crossley, Lord Entropy, where the O is a 0, Paul Craddy, Peter Sidorn, and I can only presume this is supposed to be pronounced Pig Ben Is, in reference to what Elita says to Ben, the Dungeoneer we're currently with, in level 3. Hello, Piggy, Piggy, Piggy.
That is my work bestie, and 100%.
And let's not forget Dungeoneers Peter Corridge, Dan Heath, and Adam Battersby.
Support us on Patreon at Dungeoneer level or above to get your name mentioned on the podcast. Higher level perks also receive merchandise, have access to exclusive episodes, and if you pledge as a Keeper of the Book of Quests, we'll even offer you the chance to be a guest on the podcast.
Our website is nightmarepod.co.uk.
If you're looking for Temporal Discussion merchandise, including t-shirts, stickers, and other products, it's at nightmarepod.redbubble.com.
You can email us at podcast@nightmarepod.co.uk.
And just keep telling yourself, it's only a podcast, isn't it? When I first saw Ben's series, oh, what's in hell? I hate saying series instead of level. And you come back to end it, and it's always happened at least once.
I like the term "boxing Helen." I'm keeping it though.